Welcome to the Juggling Mind and Money podcast with Steve Rowe and Jessica Schlupp-Taylor. Steve Rowe is the founder of Lucent Financial Planning and an award-winning independent financial planner. He helps you to use your money and have a great life. Jess Schlupp-Taylor is a psychologist supporting people through change, challenges, and forks in the road of life. Together, they will help unblock the sludge in your mind, stopping you from achieving financial and psychological happiness.
Hello and welcome to episode 30, unbelievable, of Juggling Mind and Money. And I'm Steve, founder of Lucent Financial Planning and a chartered financial planner. And in this podcast, we're trying to focus on being happy. And money is an important part of that. And I like to think I've got that bit wrapped up for you. If you're not happy, let's work out why and try to get there. And today, beaming away, we have a special guest, Sam Hart from Rosegate Tax. Welcome, Sam.
Hi, Steve. Pleasure to be here.
Are you excited?
I am excited. I think there's a lot of pressure on tax making people happy.
Yeah, because generally it makes people unhappy.
It does. It does.
But if you take that problem away, that makes you happy.
It does. And I think really the thing to do with tax is not to start with the tax. It's to start with what do you want? What are you trying to get to? And that's the bit that makes you happy. And then the tax fits in around there.
Ooh, well, that's the important part, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that is what makes you happy if you get what you want.
Absolutely.
Hopefully. So, Sam, tell us about your company, Rosegate Tax, and what you've been up to for the last nearly 30 years.
Yeah, you're showing my age now, Steve. I've been working with high net worth individuals, their families and entrepreneurs for almost 30 years. I know, unbelievable. And really, as I said, it's about helping people, helping clients achieve their objectives. I mean, a lot of people come to me about inheritance tax planning because that's a worry for some, for quite a lot of people that, if they've worked hard throughout their lives to generate this money, what are they going to do with it? They don't want the tax man to take all of it. And really, but it's about what do you want to achieve? My first thing I say to everybody is, well, go and spend it, because that's the best way to save inheritance tax is to have none left by the time you die.
We're very pro that here.
Yeah.
Spending.
I mean, the other alternative is, of course, to give everything away exactly 7 years before you die. Unfortunately, none of us have that, crystal ball that tells us the exact moment. And can you imagine how awful that would be, actually, if you knew the second you were going to die?
I had someone come to see us about a year ago.
Yeah.
And he was adamant he was going to go to Switzerland at a certain age. I think he was 80 or something.
Uh-huh.
There was no discussion, what if you're all right?
Yeah.
You still fully going? No, I'm going, because then it's a matter of time.
Yeah. I mean, I know some people don't want to get old because they think they go to... There is a book about that, actually, about a husband and wife who make that deal, but the wife isn't really into it and what happens. It's quite interesting. Quite an interesting story.
We have a service called the Smother Service for when when you've had enough. Visit you with a pillow.
Do you also change their will shortly before?
No, absolutely not.
So?
Absolutely not.
But anyway.
Yeah, but for people that are thinking like that, I think let's be a bit more optimistic, shall we?
Yes. And as you say, the point of life is to enjoy it, and one way of enjoying life is to spend your money and enjoy it. So any tax planning that you do should have that as forefront in your mind. That the first thing to think about is, what do I want to do? Do I want to go around the world and buy camels? Do I want to sit at home?
Well, they give you the ump.
Do I want to sit at home and play tiddlywinks? Do I want to buy racehorses and greyhounds? All of these things, because depending on what you want to do is also going to depend how you approach the tax planning. Because if you need money in your pocket to go and spend on something, we'll look at it in one way. But if you actually just want to invest it for your family, then there are other ways that we can look at doing it.
It's interesting, isn't it, I think? So let's assume everyone starts out with hardly any money.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people inherit some early, and you work hard and you go without, don't you, when you're younger, to save up
Yeah.
And then you're saving up so that you can spend down later.
Yeah.
And then that just completely flips, and then you're scared of not having it.
Yeah. Agree.
What is, in essence, a number in pixels on your phone or a screen?
Absolutely.
Well, it's crazy, really, isn't it? Oh,
It
that
is.
gives me security. And it's just a light.
I totally agree. I not a very interesting story. My car was stolen and they paid me the money for my car. It all went into my bank account. And I was just like, well, it's not actually real though. It's just, made up money that's just landed there for no reason. But I do think people's attitude to it varies, and it is about trying to get to the bottom of what is actually important to them. And for some people, as you say, it's security, and it's the security of having a number somewhere that they can look at and feel secure. And if that's what works for them, then we work with that. If other people are like, well, so long as I've spoken to Steve and he's told me I only need X amount to do all of my skydiving and scuba diving and shark diving that I want to do, I'll do something with the rest of it. I'll give it all away. And or I want to give it away with conditions, or I want to protect it. And that's how we approach it.
Shouldn't do scuba diving and skydiving in the same week, should you? Isn't there something like that gives you the bends or something?
Probably.
No. It always says that when you get on a plane, doesn't it? Have you been scuba diving?
That's true. That's true. I haven't been scuba diving for a long time.
Can you do that?
Can I do scuba diving? I did it once on the Great Barrier Reef.
Brilliant.
But I forgot to do anything with my hair though. So like in the water, I looked.
Curl it.
I meant more tie it back.
Okay.
So in the water, I looked like some sea maiden with hair all over
like
here.
a mermaid.
Yeah, and it was
Brilliant.
lovely, and I saw sponges and turtles, and it was wonderful. And then I came out, and my hair was like, for about 3 days, I couldn't get a brush through it.
Looking bedraggled.
Yes.
So you're not an ordinary tax advisor, are you? I don't think. Apart from the hair. Apart from a mermaid being a tax advisor.
I mean, that would be interesting. I mean, might make my client meetings a bit more awkward, but...
But you're like upper echelon stuff, aren't you?
Well, I would like to think so. And I think it's about, doing what I've done for so long and doing it at a very high level. Somebody the other day described me as a brain surgeon of tax advisors rather than a GP, which I thought was a very nice way to describe it. And I thought to myself, I'll use that, and I've already used it. Well done, me. So yeah, it's not that I hold myself apart, but I just think there are certain things that you need specialist advice for, and I am that specialist person, and I'm quite nice.
You are lovely. Now, Sam, so tell us about your background, though. So I know it's 29 years.
Yeah.
Because you were just crying before. It's almost 30 years. So tell us how you started, what happened, how did you get into the interesting world of taxes and accounts?
I think if you speak to anybody who works in tax and you say, so when you were a little girl, did you grow up dreaming of working in tax? They'll all look at you like you're a bit simple. Nobody really starts out wanting to be in tax. Everybody falls into it in one way or another. I fell into it because my father was an accountant.
Yeah.
And so I grew up knowing that I didn't know what I did want to do. I just knew I didn't want to be an accountant because, sometimes people do find business, but I was a bit like, oh, well, I know that looks a bit boring.
Was your first birthday present an abacus or something?
Probably. But when I was 18, I went to university and I hated it. Lots of reasons. I was far from home, didn't like it. It wasn't that I couldn't do it. I just found it an overwhelming experience. And I think actually we underestimate how much of an overwhelming experience it can be for 18-year-old children, but that's an entirely different conversation. So I came back to Birmingham and I reapplied to go to Birmingham University. But in the interim, I decided to get a job. And the only thing I had any work experience in was doing accountancy work for my dad. So when you're 18, sometimes you have this strange naivety that makes you think that you can do absolutely anything and you don't actually understand the societal norms. So I basically wrote to the big six accountants, as it were, at the time and said, I'm pretty good. I think you should give me a job. At the time when they didn't really take people who weren't graduates, it was probably quite bolshy of me to have done that, but I did it. And I got interviews at 2 of them and I ended up working at Deloitte's. But the job at Deloitte was working in tax. So I had secured an interview with a tax partner at Deloitte, and I spent the whole interview going, but I don't want to do tax. I want to do accounts. What? But somehow I still got the job. And and the rest is history. And although I did end up going back to higher education later, I ended up staying at Deloitte and doing the ATT CTA route of tax exams, which I actually think is a great route.
Yeah.
And I then did my chartered accounts exams thereafter. And I would have been doing my chartered accounts exams with the same cohort had I been to university, but I already had 2 tax qualifications and I was earning good money. So actually for me, it worked out a really good way to get into it.
Awesome. And then what are your specialisms now, would you say?
My specialisms now, my particular specialism is trusts.
Trust no one, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I still examine on trusts for STEP. I think
Do you? You're the examiner?
Not the examiner, one of the examiners on one of the
you're
routes.
in the top one, aren't you? I didn't know that.
Did you not?
No, brilliant.
Yeah.
Well.
I find it interesting because not only do I find it interesting, and I often use real life examples as inspiration for when I'm writing your questions, but it's a good way, I think, of thinking through a problem in depth, because if you're examining somebody else on it, you really need to know everything that's happening.
Possible answers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did my STEP exams quite a few years ago now. And I really do think that, if you want to be able to advise on the tax of trust, you need to understand the mechanics of it and the law of it and how it works mechanically.
Yeah.
And I think trust can be very, very, very useful for people. They're a very flexible structure. That's not to say they're the right answer for everybody, because they aren't. But I think there's also a lot of people who are sold a trust almost like as a product, and they don't understand how to use it. And then they think that trusts are rubbish. And it's not that the trusts are rubbish, it's just that you haven't been shown how it can work for you. So, my particular specialism is trusts, but I deal with anything to do with private client individuals. And particularly over the last few years, we've seen more and more people leaving the country.
Yeah.
I think
since you've been advising them.
Yes, they're like, I can't take this anymore, I'm going to leave. But I think, I'm old enough to remember 25 years ago, it was quite popular, is that the right word, to go abroad, to save tax. There were various jurisdictions that worked at that time. Belgium was one of them, although I never actually found somebody who wanted to move to Belgium. And then we had business asset tape relief and then entrepreneurs relief. And all of a sudden you could pay 10% on up to £10 million worth of gains. And people were a bit like, well, that's not worth avoiding. Because a lot of the drivers for leaving was capital gains tax. So if they're going to realise the cash on selling a business. Yeah. So if you're paying 10%, people were happy to pay that. They didn't want to do it. And then, of course, 2020 happened. So we had COVID. But also they decimated entrepreneurs relief, renamed it bad relief. Whose idea was that?
Yes, I call it.
And then all of a sudden it came back on the table. And I think also because of COVID, people couldn't go anywhere, and it's human nature, isn't it? If you can't do something, you want to do it even more. So I think from 2020, the amount of people leaving the country has definitely increased. There was rumours of everything in the budget before the last one, anything. You could have said anything and somebody would have gone, oh yeah, that's a possibility. But one of them was an exit tax. And I think that...
An exit the country tax.
Yes. So the idea, to rewind slightly in terms of capital gains tax broadly, unless we're talking about UK site as property, if you leave the UK and you're non-tax resident in the UK and you realise a gain, you don't pay UK tax on it. Now, you might pay tax where you are. Like a lot of people want to go to Spain, and I'm like, okay, fantastic. You'll end up paying more tax and you might have to pay wealth tax. So maybe that's not the best decision. But again, it's back down to why you're doing it for. If you're doing it because you want to go to Spain, go to Spain. If you're doing it for tax reasons, maybe don't pick Spain. So the idea of an exit tax would be, well, rather than on this day, you have to pay all of your capital gains tax to the UK, and on the following day, you have to pay none of your capital gains tax to the UK, that there would be some measure that taxed gains that had arisen up to the point at which you left the country. That hasn't been brought in.
been put out there, though, hasn't it?
Yeah, they haven't ruled it out, and
That's
I
what
think
they do.
yes,
Ooh, put it out there. See what happens.
it's one of those where, as a concept, it's difficult to have a moral argument against, because you could suggest that if you've built your wealth in the UK, then the UK should get some of that tax. Also, countries like Australia and Canada, Commonwealth countries that have very similar tax systems to the UK, they have an exit tax. It wouldn't be that hard for us to...
We're abnormal there, aren't we?
We are.
Like the UK is abnormal.
Yes. I didn't think you were talking about just us, but, you know.
Well, both applies.
Either work.
That's it. Okay, Sam. So we're going to talk more about this in a moment.
Okay.
But we've just got a section of the podcast we like to do.
Okay.
Diagnose Steve. There's obviously something wrong with him. Jess delves into what it could be.
So, hi, Sam.
Hello.
I left school young. I worked really hard. I worked 90 hours a week. I did everything I did to build my business up. I paid my taxes as I went, and now I'm 65 and I've sold my business. You know, I'm fed up with it because I've got 3 kids. They're all lounging about, but they need my money. I want to give it to them when I die. I don't want to give it to them now. I don't see why I should give it to them, and they need something to drive them on. They need the work ethic I had. So I don't want to give it them now or wait 7 years, but I don't see why, when I've paid tax all my life, earning it, no one else seems to have paid any tax, that when I die, I have to lose 40% of it that I've made on my own just because I'm dead. It feels like I'm being double taxed.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything, is that fair? What's wrong with me, or what's wrong with anyone thinking like that? I don't get it. What could I do instead? I'm thinking I might move abroad.
Okay. Congratulations on building your business, selling your business, and being so successful.
Oh, thank you.
It's no problem.
Look at that calming me down.
Nobody likes irate clients. And yeah, I fully appreciate what you're saying. And lots of people feel the same way, that, you know, they've paid tax as they've gone along, and when they get to the end of the day, why should their family still pay tax? You talk about going abroad. Is that something that you want to do, or are you just doing it for tax purposes?
Well, I've heard that like places like Dubai are good and don't have to pay any tax if I die there. And that's what I mainly want.
Okay. So previously, the UK inheritance tax system was based on something called domicile, which was kind of what your spiritual home was, for lack of a better phrase. But that has changed. It changed in April 2025 to be a system of long-term residency. And that means that your liability for UK inheritance tax is based on residency in the UK. Unfortunately, it doesn't click over as soon as you leave the country.
Wow.
You actually have to stay abroad for 10 years. If you've lived here all your life, which you have.
I have, born and bred in the Midlands, raised here. I love it.
It's a lovely place to be. But if you go abroad, you'd have to stay abroad for 10 years. Now, you might want to go to Dubai. Lots of people I've spoken to find that there's maybe not that much to do. It's similar in some of the Caribbean countries, and particularly if you live in one of the cities in the Midlands, which are so vibrant and exciting.
They're quite some immense all-you-can-eat buffets in Dubai, though. You know, that's 3 hours a day.
And I hear the cost of food in Dubai is quite expensive as well, so that might solve your inheritance tax problem just by itself.
Is it?
I think
don't
so.
know. I've only been there a night. Like on a stopover, you know.
And you did a 3-hour all-you-can-eat buffet.
Naturally.
But 10 years is a long time to have to stay outside of the UK. But
Can you come back at all? Like for a weekend or something? Or for a holiday? You
can. I mean, the rules on residency can be quite complicated. Can I talk about the inheritance tax bit first, and then we'll come back to how you become non-resident? Because otherwise, I think it will.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I do get very immersed in my role playing sometimes, and I was just thinking about what a real person would say.
Yeah, absolutely. But you don't have to stay in Dubai for 10 years. You could go to Dubai for 2 years. You could go to Italy for 2 years. You could go to...
Wander the world.
Yes, so long as that when you die, the jurisdiction you're in is the right one. Now, obviously, we can't predict that. The other thing to consider is UK inheritance tax is based on long-term residency. So after 10 years, you lose liability for UK inheritance tax, but only on non-UK assets. So at the moment, I'm guessing that all of your assets are probably going to be in the UK. You're going to have house, you may have some rental properties, you may have some investments and that in the UK. So even if you became classed as not a long-term resident and therefore you lose your liability to inheritance tax, you're still going to pay it on UK assets. So we'd have to look at what we could do in terms of restructuring or changing the status of those assets if it was going to have a benefit to you.
So I've got, because I'm role playing again, I've got my house, I've got a rental property down the road, which I bought for my children to get them out of my house, but I still own it. And then I've got a pension that's worth $1 million. I've got a collection of cars worth £500,000, that kind of thing. So I can, and I've got money in the bank that's easily moved. Surely I can just get all that out and sail off.
You could easily move cash. That's correct. I think chattels, tangible things like cars are often based on where they're located. So you can put those cars physically in another country, then they won't be in the UK. But again, we need to
got 12. That's a lot of ferry trips.
It is, and I don't want to think about the state of the metalwork if you're going to take them to Dubai.
Oh no.
But these are things that you need to think about. UK situs property is very difficult to avoid, particularly if it's a residential property. That's always going to be liable for UK inheritance tax, even if you tried putting some structures around it. So we need to think about what really is the benefit going to be to you, and therefore, if going abroad isn't going to achieve that, what other inheritance tax planning can we do with your UK assets to try and protect them? And that might involve using trusts, because if you put assets into trust, then they're no longer in your estate. They won't pay 40% inheritance tax anymore.
Yeah.
But there are other charges to do, but they're also then protected. So your children can maybe access some of the money, but it's not all of the money. So it's protected from things like divorce and stuff. So those are things that we can do. Going back to your personal situation, if you were to become non-UK resident, it would also have potentially income tax and capital gains tax advantages. As I've explained earlier, capital gains tax, you're not charged capital gains tax if you're not UK resident unless it's UK situs property. So you could sell assets while you were abroad and not pay any capital gains tax on them. In the UK, again, depends where you go. So it's very important not to go from the frying pan into the fire. Dubai is great for that because there's no tax at all.
It's easy.
Yeah. But also looking at your pension, for example, from 2027, the value of that pension is going to drop into your estate.
That's one of the main reasons I'm contemplating it.
Yeah. So what you could do is because it's also important. I mean, we haven't actually talked about how you establish non-residency yet, but we'll come back to that. I know we haven't talked about it, but let's say we were a resident in another country. We need to look at the double tax agreement between those countries, because it may be that in some countries you could draw out your pension and pay tax at a lower rate, a lower or possibly no rate in a foreign country, and then you can give your pension away. Still need to survive 7 years, but that might be a way of doing it. And of course, if we are out for 10 years, then the 7 years, if it's non-UK situs assets, we're fine.
Okay, so Sam, I'm back in Steve the presenter mode now.
Okay.
It sounds like I've got an alter ego, haven't I? It'll come out in a minute. It sounds like really it isn't a quick fix, because when people come to see us, that's often what they think.
Yeah.
And it is actually, you can't be spending 9 months here and just have a house somewhere.
Absolutely not. The statutory residence test is actually a very good piece of legislation, because when presented with a set of facts, it's quite easy to see whether somebody's resident or not. It's much harder to use it either way around and go, if this, then that, whatever. Broadly, there are some automatic tests that, like, for example, if you were like an employee and you got a job in the Paris office, ordinarily you'll be non-resident as soon as you leave to go and work full-time abroad, provided you don't spend more than 90 days in the UK. Then we get into ties, and there are various ties. One is accommodation, so if you have anywhere to stay in the UK, so it can also include the homes of close relatives, so it's not just if you've got your own property. There's a work tie if you work in the UK for 3 hours or more than 40 days. There's a family tie, which is if your wife and minor children are in the UK.
Stay here, yeah.
So, you know, there are some carve-outs for children at boarding school, but the one that is important in the first 2 years is something called the 90-day tie, which is if you've been here for more than 90 days in one of the last 2 tax years, you'll automatically have that tie. That means most people, when they leave the UK, are going to have at least one tie. And if you have one tie, broadly, you can come back for 120 days. But if you get to 2, it's 90, 3, 46, and it goes down. So the more ties you have to the UK, the fewer days you can spend in the UK without becoming a UK resident. And it can be very important to make sure you don't trip over those, because the effects of becoming accidentally UK resident once you've tried to be a non-resident can be financially painful, shall we say.
So this isn't just like booking a flight, getting a house somewhere. This is proper, you are leaving and you can't come back. And that, I think that's a big wrench in anyone's life, because you've got your family and friends. And, you know, you don't want your friends over your house all the time, do you? That'd be well annoying. They'll see you as a free holiday.
Absolutely. And I think that's why whenever I talk to somebody about it, I'm like, is this something you've always wanted to do? So the people it suits most are people who have perhaps always been a bit peripatetic and lived in different countries, or, you know, they have a holiday home in another country, or they've spent a lot of time in another country, and they may have, you know, that sense of community somewhere else. Because you're right, to leave completely and have no contact with, you know, or very little contact with the UK can be very, very hard. I always say to people, if you're only doing it for tax reasons, the first 2 years is probably okay. It's like a big long holiday. But after 2 years, you want to come home. There are tax implications if you come back sooner than 5 years. Obviously, for inheritance tax, you need to stay out for 10 years. Mm-hmm. So you need to bear that in mind. And it's not that don't try it, but just be aware of what's going to happen if you do come back. And, you know, if you don't like it, what is the cost to you? It's also important to note that timing can be very important, because in the UK, residency normally goes on a tax year basis.
Yeah.
There are some limited circumstances in which you can have what we call a split year, which is you're resident up to the point you leave and then you're non-resident thereafter. But there are only very limited circumstances in which that applies. So what it means is, if you can only spend 90 days in the UK without being UK resident, and you don't leave the UK until July, you might have already spent 90 days in the UK. So even though you leave the UK, you're still going to be resident for the tax year. And the same in coming back, you can almost end up being resident before you've come back. So it's really important to make sure you get the timing right as well, particularly if your tax treatment hinges on, for example, that you need to have been out for 5 tax years. And yet, if you time it wrongly, your start of your residency could be earlier than you think it is. And then you've naffed everything up. I nearly said a rude word then, Steve.
That'd be all right, because we'd get a profane rating.
I'm not sure.
That would please me immensely.
It would please you?
Yes.
Oh, hold on.
Sam. So if you have to be out of the country for 10 years, let's look at inheritance tax. Mm-hmm. And typically you might do that when you're at your wealthiest, which might be when you've sold your business.
Yeah.
Or, you know, retired and you're not tied through working for whatever you're doing. So say you're in your 60s, mm-hmm. and then you think, right, I've got to go for 10 years. And in your 60s, you might, you know, if you're probably going to live 30 years maybe, you know, that's a lot of time, innit? And especially if you think of your healthy life, mm-hmm. if you're going to go now, because you need to survive that 10 years, you've got to go sharpish, haven't you?
Yes.
That might be all your healthy life. And then what if you don't like it?
Yeah.
Because it is hard, isn't it? Assimilating in new cultures. And
it is. And I think that's why it works best if people approach it in a flexible manner. Maybe, well, I'll try it for this long and I'll know I've got these benefits. But I also, you know, obviously if you have an excellent tax advisor, you'll know that if you decide to come back, what the consequences of that are. And then you can make an informed decision, what's more valuable to you. saving this amount of tax or coming back home. I think you do get two types of people. So if you've sold a business for £10 million, say, because it's a nice round number, you get some people who will say, well, I could save £2.4 million worth of tax if I go abroad before I sell my business. And you get other people saying, I've got £7.6 million. I want to do what I want. I want to go where I want. If I want to go to the Royal Opera House every single day, I want to do that. So it's about what's important to you. And tax is one of those things.
Yeah. Do you know the film Goodfellas?
I'm aware of its work.
Yeah. And I forget his name, but he was then put in witness protection, wasn't he? And he missed his friends and stuff.
Yeah.
And he missed his old lifestyle, and he couldn't really go back, and he kept breaking witness protection.
Yeah.
And they had to move him. Kind of feels a bit like that. So my life's in one place.
Yeah.
I've got to go and set up an entirely new one to save some money, which, you ain't going to save because you only save it when you're dead. So you won't notice. But the kids, you're saving it on behalf of your children. I think that's quite a big break. And you'd miss, like, if we're talking about how to be happy, your friends, family, they're a huge part of that.
Absolutely.
And if you can't come back to see them, if you're apart, you're going to be however you do it, you're going to see less of them. Right? That I think that might be a detriment. So it's got to be worth it, the positive sides.
Absolutely. And that's, again, back to why are you doing it? I think one thing that some people underestimate is if you think about the friends that you have at the moment, a lot of people might have got those through workplaces or through their children or through things like that. But if you're going abroad when you're 65, you're not working, you don't have children in that kind of automatic social circle. So how are you going to make friends? And I think it can be quite isolating depending on where you go, unless you can find a community of like-minded individuals.
A few of my friends have moved abroad with work, and I've gone to see them. Turns out I was the reason they moved abroad. But I went to see them more because it was like a holiday for me instead of going out. So,
and it is a different dynamic, as you say. It's one thing seeing people all the time and going to, I don't know, McDonald's with them. That was a really bad example.
Is that what you do? How many nuggets do you have?
I actually don't like nuggets.
Well,
I think I'm the only person in the world that doesn't like nuggets.
And people in our office, I think they're going to have a cheeseburger eating competition. Someone who's very brave reckons they can do over a dozen.
Like, is this timed or is this just capacity?
I think, I'm not getting involved because...
Oh, I think you should. I think it's incumbent on you as, esteemed leader to...
To be fair, I could probably do quite well because I've had my spleen removed. There's a lot of room.
There's more room?
Yeah. That was like a gastric band because it got all swollen for me. So I couldn't eat much. Had it out, put on like 2 stone really quickly because I just eat now.
Well, see, I had my tonsils removed when I was 34 and I couldn't eat for 2 weeks because it was just horrendous. And after 2 weeks, I'd lost about half a pound and I was like, my tonsils weighed more than that.
Yeah. Well, they would have been swollen, wouldn't they? Right, Sam. So that's very interesting about moving abroad. It's not as simple as just going. You have to prepare. You have to think about your new life. I think you'd have to be very active in the new place, like meeting new people, which can be great. Yeah. With your money, you have to prepare that and you have to make decisions on that before you go, really. And then you can't really come back much.
Yeah, the amount you can come back is limited. After the first 2 years, if you haven't been more than 90 days, you can probably come back a little bit more. But then if you are more than 90 days, you get a 90-day tie back again. So it's a bit of a, catch-22. After you've been non-resident for 3 years, the limits do relax a bit, so you can spend a little bit longer. But, in most countries, if you spend more than 183 days, 6 months in them, you'll be considered resident. So you'll never be able to come back to the UK for more than 6 months.
So purely for tax reasons, you mentioned Belgium right at the start.
Yeah.
And we've talked about Dubai. Is there any others that are particularly attractive or in Europe maybe or...
Yeah, and again, it depends what you're looking for, and different helpful jurisdictions have different criteria for what they do, and different things are relieved. So some years ago, there was a Portuguese scheme which was very, very popular because it basically exempted any income outside of Portugal for 10 years, which meant that people could go to Portugal and still draw money from the UK. And because of the way the rules worked, it wasn't taxable in the UK, it wasn't taxable in Portugal. So it was a very good scheme.
Was that Golden Visa? Was that what it's called?
No, it was called the non-habitual residency scheme.
Oh, not quite as marketable.
No. But Portuguese people complained that of all the foreigners coming in and using this scheme and, you know, pushing house prices up and stuff. So the Portuguese government stopped it. Italy has a very similar scheme now, but it costs money to take part in it. It's
an entry fee.
It's an annual fee.
Okay.
When they first brought it, it was €100,000. Then they increased it to €200,000, and from January it's €300,000 per annum to exempt.
€300,000.
Yep.
Bloody hell.
And that if you want like your spouse and children, you pay like a small. It's not 300,000 per person. There's a bit extra. So that's only going to be suitable for people with very large amounts of income or gains, because otherwise it's just not going to be tax efficient. Other places that people look at in Europe are Gibraltar, Monaco, Cyprus, and Malta.
Okay, yeah.
In those jurisdictions, Monaco doesn't have any tax, but you're normally paying a small amount of tax rather than a large amount. And
it's expensive there, though, isn't it?
Like a flat, Monaco is, yeah. I mean, to become resident in Monaco, you normally need to have some accommodation, and getting the accommodation is expensive. Similar in Gibraltar, but not quite as expensive. There are other criteria for qualifying for those schemes in the other countries. Switzerland can work quite well as well, but again, it depends where you want to go. If you want to go to somewhere popular, you're going to end up paying more tax than if you go to somewhere, one of the cantons that nobody wants to go to. And it essentially works a bit like a negotiation. You say, I want to live here and I'll do this and I'll, buy a house and I'll contribute to the economy, but I only want to pay this amount of tax.
Okay.
So again, it can work for the right clients. But again, it's also where do you want to be? Where do you want to be based? Because, you can go further flung, you can go to Dubai, you can go to Cayman Islands. But again, that's quite far.
I'd say Gibraltar wouldn't be great to live in, would it? I don't know. I've been there, but it's a few streets.
Yeah, I mean, I had a client who wanted to consider Gibraltar, but they wanted, a big house with a big garden because they had the money to do that. And you just can't get that in Gibraltar because there isn't the land mass to be able to, facilitate that kind of building.
Or earth, because it's a rock, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
If you want a rose garden.
But it's back down to, is it you're using it as a base or are you using it as your home? So I think, again, it's back down to what do you want to do? What are you trying to achieve? How can we best sort this for you?
Okay. So we're just going to go for a brief interlude.
Steve and Jess would be really grateful if you'd leave them a review on wherever you listen to your podcasts. If they run a star system, please give Juggling Mind and Money more stars than the Milky Way.
So reviews. We've had a review, which we get quite a lot, but they're mainly stars. Stars. Anyway, they're mainly stars. But this one, this time we've got a written review, and it's from a gentleman called Barat. And I'll just read it straight off. It's quite a lot.
It is quite a lot. Do you not think I should read it to big you up rather than you bigging yourself up?
Well, you're part. Yeah. Do you want to read it then?
Okay.
Oh.
I volunteered myself there, didn't I? Okay. Shall I do it?
Yeah, it starts there.
And do you want me to read all of it?
Yeah.
It is quite long.
Well, he took the time to write it. So.
Okay. So, Barat says, if you've ever attempted to read about tax bans or pension rules and found yourself questioning every life choice that led you there, I've got good news. Steve from Lucent Financial Planning Services has created a podcast that might just restore your will to live and help you sort out your finances. That's not really because of the podcast, hey, that's just you though, isn't it? Anyway.
Well, you listen to the podcast first.
True. Steve has that rare ability to take topics normally reserved for insomniacs and turn them into something genuinely enjoyable. Tax is fun. Pensions, forecasting your retirement income, these are not subjects known for their crowd-pleasing qualities, and yet somehow Steve sprinkles a bit of humour, a dash of humanity, and a healthy dose of common sense to make it all not only understandable, but actually rather entertaining. His guests are equally brilliant.
Like you, Sam.
No pressure. Together they chat through the complexities of money matters with the kind of ease and warmth that makes you feel like you've just pulled up a chair at the pub, albeit a pub where people talk about ISAs and financial independence rather than who's buying the next round. What really sets the podcast apart is its knack for making you feel smarter without feeling lectured. It's informative, engaging, and dare I say it, fun. Yes, fun. About finances. I didn't think it was possible either. So whether you're planning your retirement, trying to get a grip on your long-term finances, or simply want a podcast that makes you chuckle while it quietly improves your life, this is the one. In short, Steve and the Lucent team have turned financial planning into something you'll actually look forward to listening to. It's witty, warm, and genuinely useful, a must listen for anyone who wants to be money savvy without needing a lie down afterwards.
There you go. Thank you very much, Barat. Now, Sam, when you volunteered to do that, I did think you'd do it in the 20s posh voice you were doing before we went on air. Go on, give everyone a blast.
Put me on the spot now. I just think it's awfully wonderful if one can talk like this, and it's no, I can't do it now. I'm too embarrassed.
That is an awful voice. Delightful.
But
yeah,
no,
Sam
that
from
was a
the
lovely
1920s.
review, wasn't it?
That was nice, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Bless him, and for taking the time to do it. So thank you very much for that. So reviews are really important to us because if we want to get up from the 987,620th best podcast in the world, we need a few reviews.
A few reviews.
Yeah, and we've got 30 episodes now
Okay.
with you, Sam. So got a special one, 30 episodes for the 30th year.
Yes.
That was all lined up.
So if you have good things to say about Steve, please leave a review. If you have bad things to say about me, maybe don't.
Right, so we've talked about moving abroad, but I don't want to move abroad.
Don't blame
Right,
me.
because I lived in America for 3 or 4 months when I was 22, and I really missed back bacon. Literally on the flight home, I was drooling at the thought.
What do they do in America
They
then?
just have streaky, crispy bacon, which
Okay.
has its place. I do like it. That's fine.
Okay.
But sometimes you just want proper. I know it's not British; it's from Denmark or somewhere. But I just want that proper stuff.
Yeah, mine are probably Marmite,
Oh, an HP sauce. All these-
Garibaldi biscuits.
Oh, aren't they Italian? Are they? Was they just named
I don't
after
think they
him?
sell them in Italy. Just named after an Italian.
I would move to Italy for pasta and stuff. That'd be awesome, wouldn't it? That's why you should go,
For past, yes.
for the food. And that's becoming a World Heritage food,
Pasta.
Italian food.
All of it.
Yeah. Because
My
French.
Garibaldi biscuits. So
French food and Japanese food are the World Heritage ones. I think it's new for this year or last year or next year. There you go. Not only find out about money. So I don't want to move
okay.
because I like staying within a square mile of where I live.
Okay.
I like to do the same things. I fear change.
Yes.
Right. But I still don't want to pay. I want to minimise my inheritance tax bill as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So what could I do here?
Okay. So if you're here, you're going to be liable for inheritance tax on your worldwide assets. We touched on it earlier. There is a 7-year rule for inheritance tax in terms of gifting. And if you gift assets to an individual, provided you survive 7 years, there's no tax at all. So theoretically, as I said, you could give away all your assets 7 years before you die, and there's no inheritance tax. I do have to add a proviso, though, that if those are assets rather than cash, you may incur capital gains tax in disposing of those assets. Because
People often miss that, don't they?
They do.
Yeah. I'll just put it in their name.
Yeah.
And it is just a name change.
Yeah.
But implications.
Absolutely. For tax purposes, it's treated as a disposal at market value. So this isn't about transfers between spouses because those are treated differently. But to anybody else, it's treated as a disposal at market value to a connected person. So you have to pay the tax as if you received the proceeds. So if going back to our lovely Steve who wanted to disappear earlier.
Nasty Steve.
Nasty Steve. Are you nice,
It
Steve?
wasn't nasty, but different point of view, Steve.
Yes. He had a rental property. So if he decided to just give that rental property to his children, then there would be a capital gains tax disposal at that point. As it's a residential property, he'd need to declare and pay the tax within 60 days, and he's got no money to pay the tax with. So people do miss these things. And just to touch on that, you may have heard in the news the things about the BPR and APR changing.
Yeah. What's BPR and APR?
BPR stands for Business Property Relief and APR stands for Agricultural Property Relief. So basically, it covers business assets or farming assets, really. And previously, this relief was unlimited. So there was a bit of a conflict in terms of holding on to assets until you die. Because as I've just explained, if you give assets away while you're alive, you might pay capital gains tax on them. But if you hold on to them until you die, you get an uplift of capital gains tax to the market value at the time that you die. So if you were getting...
could double up, couldn't you?
Exactly. So you could get business property relief on a business at 100%, so you pay no inheritance tax on it. And then you'd also get a capital gains tax uplift. So if they wanted to, your beneficiaries could inherit that business, those shares, sell them immediately. They've paid no inheritance tax and no capital gains tax. Nice squeeze if you can get it. But it did cause this pinch point where people would hold on to assets until they die, because you need to bear that in mind in terms of if you're trying to give things away, are you triggering existing liabilities?
As a financial advisor, I would say that it's not just the rates and the tax you pay. You need to think what those assets are earning you as well. So I find quite a lot of those assets with better inheritance tax reliefs or whatever, they don't earn as much. And then, so you're ending up in the same position anyway with less money.
Yeah.
Purely because you've gone for the tax saving rather than what your real goal probably is leaving as much as possible, not saving as much tax as possible.
Yeah.
That's a good bit of reframing, isn't it?
It is. I like that. And that kind of is a key point, is that if you give assets away, you do genuinely have to give them away, because if you retain, access to them or right to them, so say, for example, you give away your house and continue to live there, that's not going to be treated as a gift for inheritance tax purposes, because you're still getting a benefit from it. So you need to be careful of that. And same on a rental property, if you give it away, you can't then receive the rental income. So that will frustrate some people in terms of what they can give away, because they still need the income. And that to me is a crucial part of inheritance tax planning, because there is literally no point giving away all your assets that you're sat there going, I've got no money, I've got no income, I can't do anything, because that's not the point of what we're trying to achieve.
Well, that means your life won't be as good and maybe more fraught with worry.
Exactly.
Because you have to budget more.
Yeah. So I always recommend people will talk to somebody like you to talk about how much money they do need compared with how much money they have. And then, if there's a clear amount that we don't need, then we can do some planning with that and we can give that away. Now, some people don't want to just give assets to their children. They might be, let's assume they're over 18, but they might only be 18 or 19 and,
Well, no, not good, getting a lot of money, probably.
Exactly. I think, children at that age aren't necessarily fully cognizant of what they need to, things that they need to think about. So they might want to put it into a trust. And a trust is an arrangement where the person who puts the assets into trust can retain control of it by being a trustee. They can't benefit from it themselves, but they can control the manner in which the beneficiaries benefit from that money. Now, once assets are in trust, they never suffer 40% inheritance tax, because a trust itself doesn't pay 40% inheritance tax. And somebody dying isn't an event for a trust, because once it's in a trust and we've survived the 7 years on the personal gift into trust, the trust just runs by itself. Now, there are smaller tax charges on trusts every 10 years at a lower rate, maximum of 6%. But generally, it works out far more efficient having assets in a trust than suffering 40% every time somebody dies. Yeah. And the reason, and because of this, you're limited how much you can put in, because otherwise, because they are tax efficient, maybe everybody would put loads of money into trust and nobody would pay any inheritance tax, and we'd have more problems. So you're limited to 325,000 every 7 years.
That's per person though, isn't it?
That's
Not
per person.
couple.
Yeah. So if you had a couple, you could do 650 every 7 years, which means that in 14 years and 2 days' time, you could probably get almost £2 million into trust if that's what you wanted to do.
Wowza.
Yeah. You would then need to survive another 7 years from the last gift, but that, especially if you start early and you've got enough time to do that, that can be quite an efficient way of doing it. The other way is to put assets that qualify for relief into trust. So I referred to business property relief and agricultural property relief earlier. Those reliefs used to be unlimited. So you could put shares worth 10 million, 20 million, 100 million into trust and pay no tax on it. Those rules have now changed. And from April next year, it's limited to £1 million per person to get that relief. And again, that refreshes every 7 years. Although up until this April, we do have a window of opportunity where we might be able to get more in if that's what we want to do. I'm not suggesting everybody just rushes out and does it before April just because you can, because it still might not be the right answer.
Well, a lot of people won't have those assets anyway, will they?
They won't.
That qualify for those.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing we can think about is if we have an inheritance tax problem today, but also we're perhaps not sure about how much money we need, how much value we need going forwards, then maybe we can look at doing things that take some of the growth out of your estate. So if you know your assets are worth 4 million today and you don't need any more, then if we can structure things such that, because in 10 years' time, those 4 million assets aren't going to be worth £4 million. They might be worth 6, they might be worth 8, they might be worth 10. So what we can do is structure things such that essentially we're not making the problem worse. We've got a problem today, let's not make it worse. And that also is a more gradual way of passing value to other family members, maybe a trust, while still allowing the person access to their money in the first place.
Okay, to sum up then, because we'll wind up the show now.
Okay.
Because we're going for lunch.
Oh, I thought it's because we'd bored people.
No, how dare you? It's because I want a chicken souvlaki. That's
me
why.
too.
Oh, I love them. Anyway, so inheritance tax is wide ranging. I think you need to decide if you want to actually do anything about it before, because even after the inheritance tax, if it's that much, your kids are going to be wealthy anyway. Yeah. I would have thought. So is it an issue? If it is, looking at ways of doing it in the country first. Mm-hmm. So don't just go immediately, right, I'm off. Let's look at how you can minimise it here. Yeah. Because it might be a lot less arduous than moving abroad, which isn't the quick fix, I think. That's what we've learned today.
Absolutely.
And could be quite a not traumatic event in your life, but it is certainly a big change.
Yeah, it's a big commitment and it can be quite onerous.
Yeah, and many people fear change.
They do.
I'm just staring at the camera there, everyone. So that's a big life move. If you're looking at your life and how to be happiest, which probably is why we're all here and what we should be doing, rather than how to keep money that we can't take with us anyway.
Absolutely.
Because you only take the pennies on your eyes, then you need to look at all these options together and perhaps line them up like your comparison list.
Yeah, and it's key to start thinking about it sooner, because 7 years, we can use that to our advantage as long as we look at things sooner and more regularly.
I mean, I often advocate, look, you can't solve this all in one go.
No.
But let's stop it getting bigger.
Yeah.
That's one thing. Yeah. Little bits each year. It doesn't have to be like a silver bullet for a werewolf. Mm-hmm. And I don't think really that's possible anyway. Chip away with it over time.
So what would you do if you were faced with a werewolf if you don't think silver bullets work?
Invite him for tea.
Okay.
I'd say, hey, werewolf, you're probably misunderstood. What's really going on? Can I have my arm back? Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much, Sam, of Rosegate Tax. Please do look Sam up if you need any help. And I'm sure she'd be happy to help you. Wouldn't you?
I would be delighted to. And, thank you for having me on. It's been immense fun. I am worried I haven't lived up to the entertainingly high standard that has been set.
You've been very entertaining. And I think anyone that's listening should write a review about you, demanding you return. Because it would be good if we had a regular slot for you, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. Sam's Tax. That kind of thing.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks very much for listening, everybody. I'll see you next time. I don't know what we're doing next time. I'm sure it'll be exciting. See you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.